Yeah, sounds good, man.
Welcome in everybody to the Overlooked podcast. I'm your host, Coach Jordan. Some people call me Coach Jolo. With me today is former NFL exec, former scout, Trey Scott. Trey, how are you today?
What's up, Jordan? Appreciate you having me on, man.
Of course, of course. Thank you for hopping on. Before we get started, I just
Absolutely.
kind of want to let everybody go down a list of your achievements because you got a lot of them. You played quarterback at K State. You graduated summa cum laude. 10 years, 11 years as an NFL scout. I'm sorry about that. Spent time with Washington and spent time with the Raiders as well. Why don't we just talk about just starting off
Of
your
course.
experience from college football to scouting, how that kind of happened?
Yeah. So I think long story short, I was good enough to get there. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a great Division I player, nor was I athlete. So I knew pretty quick that I was going to have to make a pivot if I wanted to stay in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, ultimately, that my freshman year, we had a pretty good draft class
Yeah.
with Jordy Nelson. We had Josh Freeman. So we had a bunch of scouts coming through practice. So again, I'm putting this in a nutshell, but seeing the scouts come to practice, I was like, huh, like that could be me.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
knew really early, at least early in my adult life, that's what I wanted to do. And to be honest, I just put all my eggs in one basket. I networked from there. I tried to find any internship opportunity and just align the stars in my favor for when I graduated. So yeah, I took that. Uh, so I graduated during the lockout, if
Mm-hmm.
you all remember that in 2010. So it was a little bit of an awkward waiting period. So
Nice. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Cool.
yeah, so like the first thing I said when I took the job was like, look, when the NFL calls, I'm out.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, sure, okay. So lockout got over, and the next day I got two phone calls, and one was the Packers, one was the Redskins, and ended up taking the Redskins job because it was
Nice.
honestly it was just a more permanent opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And the way it happened, the Reggie McKenzie was in the Packers interview, and January of that year, he ended up taking the job in Oakland to be the GM.
Oh wow.
So I remember
Yeah.
seeing it
So.
on ESPN, and then I drove home. I forget, or I drove to the office. I forget where I was, but then I checked my phone. I had a voicemail from
Of
Reggie
course,
McKenzie.
yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
hey,
as soon as I saw it, yeah, on the TV, I was like, all it said was ready to be a Raider. I was
yeah,
like, all right, cool. So
cool,
I had to wait
sounds
till
good to
after the
me.
draft, and
Yeah,
he put trust in me early, and yeah, I spent 10 years there, man. It was
nice.
awesome.
And kind of just going back on your college experiences, how would you say that your experience as a college quarterback, especially when you're not one of those guys who are active roster, you're not getting the play time.
Yeah,
How do you think that kind of shaped and influenced your career in scouting?
I think it allowed me more time to observe.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of have the both the 10,000 foot view and then the boots on the ground view.
Yeah.
So I really, honestly, I really took it as an opportunity to learn. Like I I, I wasn't naive. Like I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I could scout fairly well myself. So I knew early, but being able to be in all those meetings, being able to like help signal in the plays, being on the headset,
Yeah.
being able to just really observe and soak up everything. Honestly, I was soaking up everything that the coaches were doing and that the players were doing because of my role as like a backup quarterback,
Mm-hmm.
and my involvement in the game plan and my involvement in like game day operations. So
Nice.
I saw a lot more than I probably should have. They put a lot of trust in me, not on the field, but off the field.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah.
yeah, nice. So my follow-up question to that would kind of just be, being in that quarterback room, do you think that that may have influenced how you scouted specifically at the quarterback position, um, during your career?
100%. Yeah, for better or for worse. Sometimes you know too much and you think too
Mm-hmm.
much because you know exactly what they're reading and what they're supposed to be taught and where their eyes are supposed to be and how to anticipate or what it should look like. So I think I think a lot of times it kind of twists your brain in circles because you want it to be perfect. You want to see a perfect
Yeah.
player, but at the end of the day, quarterback's about being a reactionary athlete, being able to just process a bunch of data at once and make plays.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
So what I did learn is you can't wrap a pretty little bow on making plays.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but it does help, especially when I interview. I sit down with a
Mm-hmm.
prospect and interview them. Like I know ball,
Right.
and we went through a few coaches, so which was because we weren't very good. But
Yeah.
so I know I know like different perspectives of ball.
Mm-hmm.
I know different terminology, different offenses, and how they read defenses. So I felt like that helped me more than anything because I could know if someone was
Nice.
either making stuff up or didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah, yeah. So kind of just staying on that same thing,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to you knowing ball and you being a pretty good scout. I was scrolling through your social media this morning because I was like, dang, I don't know what to ask. And I saw you kind of wrote something saying more so that you don't even feel like you're like a scout, if that makes sense. Something like that. You feel like you're not even I'd have to pull up the
Man, I
script.
don't even know what I
Yeah,
wrote,
it's
so
okay. It's
you're gonna
okay.
have to walk me to the.
I didn't save it, so I'll just skip past that, skim past that. But it was kind of leading up to what I was going to ask, which was involving your little pamphlet you wrote called "Top 5 Reasons Your Son's Not a D1 Football Recruit." So your number 2 reason on there, I love. It's you're wasting your time chasing the wrong schools. Just for
Yeah,
those
yeah.
athletes out there who might be watching this, could you kind of elaborate on what you mean when you say that? Because after reading it, I was like, yeah, I know exactly what it means. But for those who just haven't had a chance to read yet, could you mind?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll start by saying it's not necessarily anyone's fault.
Mm-hmm.
It's you're living in the world, you're putting on the helmet, or you're a parent of someone who's putting on the helmet, and it's really hard to know where you stack.
Mm-hmm.
Like I actually made a post about it the other day about like the kind of the goggles you wear as a parent. Like I spent 12 years studying the whole country of football players. Like I can
Mm-hmm.
compare everybody to everybody, so I know where they stack. Like I got a little girl. Like I have no clue
Yeah.
what big, fast, strong looks like compared to every other
Mm-hmm.
girl in the country. So that's the first thing I will say. The second thing, it just the importance of having that self-awareness
Mm-hmm.
and being able to understand your level. Some of it's common sense, but a lot of it's not. A lot of it's nuance. A lot of it's uh, just a ton of detail and comparison. Like it's
Right.
comparison, just like the draft. Like a third round player one year is not a third round player the other year because
Right.
maybe there's 200 players better than him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about just understanding the landscape, understanding where you fit within that, and then rather than a shotgun approach, like, and I'll talk to kids, they're like, yeah, man, I'm looking at University of Penn State and then Shippensburg.
Yeah.
Like, no, you're not.
Yeah. That's
So
a
then they're
big
going to
jump.
camp.
Yeah.
Yeah, then they're going to camps all over the country,
Mm-hmm.
like wasting time, money, resources, and ultimately not getting in front of the right coaches
Yeah.
that actually need to see him. So that's what I was alluding to there. It is a hard level to find
Mm-hmm.
because people aren't just qualified to tell you how good you are.
Yeah.
So that's kind of part of a gap that I'm trying to help bridge in the parent and athlete
Yeah.
space.
Nice. And I mean, speaking on that gap, we can kind of jump to number 4 on there. You said there's a big gap between all neighborhood and Division One,
Yeah.
which it's so ironic that that was in there because so most recently on the podcast I had Cam Lampkin, plays
Uh-huh.
DB at Washington State now and just transferred from Utah State. He was like, well, when he walked into, he's in a Pac-12 locker room now. He
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I thought I was the hot stuff because coming in, as a freshman, he was all state, and he gets
Uh-huh.
there and he's like, oh, yeah, I was that too. Oh, me too. And, I've been on the roster 3 years. I
Everybody.
didn't touch the
Yep.
field. So I love the way that you included that on there just because it's so important for people, especially if they aspire to play at the Division One level, to understand just because you're good where you're at doesn't mean that you're
Yeah.
good. You know?
100%.
Yeah. Kind of just moving on though. Um, so, can you talk about your journey? I didn't even mention this when I was giving you your
Yeah.
praise. You were the youngest area scout in the league to be promoted to assistant director of player personnel.
I mean, yeah. So, and I don't know necessarily a statistics or if this is in like
Yeah.
any Guinness Records book, but like I said, like Reggie McKenzie, man, he put a lot of faith in me.
Yeah.
I was fresh out of college, and he put
Mm-hmm.
me in my own area. I ended up moving to Chicago, and I was in charge of scouting, like the whole Midwest, like the whole Big Ten, and then that whole geographic area. So,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't even shaving, and I was scouting for an NFL team, and had a little say in draft meetings. So, yeah, I'm thankful for that. And then,
Mm-hmm.
like again, they kept moving me up and putting more on my plate, and ultimately ended up moving my family to Vegas when the team moved. And honestly, I've seen a lot behind the curtain before I was 30, so it was really cool.
Nice, nice. So I because you have been in scouting so long, have you seen kind of like a landscape change that's kind of come with scouting? I know now there's like NIL. I
Yeah.
specifically with basketball, I know that's so different than what it is. But has something similar happened with football as well? You mind elaborating on that or talking on that just a little bit?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And again, like I'm gonna preface everything like it's
Mm-hmm.
nobody's fault. Like this is just the world we're living in. And like the old school people will be like, nobody loves football anymore, or they're all in it for the wrong reasons. Like, yes, some are, but
Mm-hmm.
also like it's our job to field a team, okay? And
Right.
it's a numbers game. Okay. If there's 5 guys now who are obsessed with football and would do it for free, cool. We need 53 or we
Right.
need 85. Like, so we got to find the 80 others, who maybe are motivated by a little bit something different. So it's certainly evolved over the time. I
Mm-hmm.
know I don't know where you went here on the podcast. I'm just looking at myself here.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm on a different screen. I got you. I'm still here though. I promise.
No,
Yeah.
but I mean, we like combine interviews for example.
Mhm.
Like we always ask, like, I don't know what teams are in the AFC West, for instance.
Mhm.
And 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I would probably bat 60%. And as the time went by, like we started batting like 10%.
Wow.
Just kids have different priorities now, and
Mhm.
it just is what it is. So you just kind of have to redefine what's going to be a pro. And when I
Yeah.
say a pro, I mean just like more like taking care of your business.
Mhm.
Like you don't, not everybody eats, sleeps, and breathes it anymore.
Exactly.
So yeah, so being able to adjust what that looks like, and finding guys who are going to take care of their business and going to maximize what they got in them physically,
Yeah.
like that's the way it's evolved. But people have changed,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
but we got to change with them.
Mhm. So how would you say that kind of changed the way that you scouted players?
I mean, I used to be a hard ass, like, dude doesn't love football, like,
Mhm.
we don't want him on our team. Like, you just run out of players, man. You would
Right.
run out of
Yeah.
players.
Yeah.
And also loving football looks different in
Mhm.
everybody. Like it used to look like, you got scars on your forehead and you just like go home and play Madden and watch Sunday Ticket. Like
Yeah.
now it's just different. Like
Mhm.
they're on social media, they're doing
Yeah.
other things, they're getting paid, they're doing commercials. Like it's just different. And you just got to find out who's going to show up on time and who actually cares. Like I said this before, like I don't care what your why is.
Mhm.
I just need you to have one. And when that changes, when the circumstance changes, you got to be able to adjust your why.
Exactly.
So it doesn't, the why is going to be different than it used to be.
Exactly. I love it. Love it. Great answer. So just going back to your social
Yeah.
media, there was a post you put out a while ago. You were saying that high school coaches take a beating, which I can
Yeah.
attest firsthand to that. They're the guys who have the weight on their shoulders and get blamed if a player doesn't have the offers they want. You say
Hmm.
you've been tracking the excuses, and it's pretty fun. You love the data behind it. Uh, what do you think some of those bigger excuses or the more common excuses in that have been?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of why I started posting this stuff. Cause
Mm-hmm.
like I just don't understand now that I'm out of like the line of fire. I just didn't
Mm-hmm.
understand like why people couldn't see like why they weren't getting paid to play or why they didn't get the offers. And it just drove me nuts because the first thing they would do is, like I said, they'll throw their coach under the bus.
Right.
Man, coach didn't he's selling other guys to recruiters and not me.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I told a parent his kid was probably projected as like a first and second down running back the other day. And he's like, man, that's because coach doesn't throw me the ball. And it's like, or my kid the ball. It's like, well, objectively, like your kid is really tight. Like he can't run very
Yeah,
good route. Like he's got really short arm. He's a small target. Like objectively, it's going to be hard for him.
exactly.
And like it, honestly, I bet 75% of the excuses revolve around the coach.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is like, well, they don't know what they're looking at, or my son is better than this guy,
Yeah,
or my son opened up opportunities for this guy. I'm trying to think of some other good ones. Like a lot of, I don't know, just a
yeah,
lot
no,
of a lot
you're
of people
fine.
playing the victim card, which is
Mm-hmm.
okay. It's cool. Like, and it goes back to the first question you asked me. It's a lack of self-awareness.
Exactly.
Like you don't have anybody who's going to be real with you, and maybe you do, but you're not listening.
Yeah.
Uh,
Whenever they're being honest with you and telling you, you know, how they see it, it's, oh, you're just a hater. You just don't want me
yeah,
to succeed. I've seen it
yeah,
time and time again. Yeah,
100%. And
yeah.
what I'm trying to share is like, dude, I've literally tracked 10,000 at
Mm-hmm.
least players go from high school to college, from college to the league. Like the guys who are like that, they don't make it.
Yeah.
They do not
Mm-hmm.
make it. They'll make it as far as their genetic gifts will let them, and
Yeah,
then they'll fail.
exactly.
And it's just like that's what I'm trying to stop. It's like you need to have some awareness. You need to have the truth. Otherwise, you're gonna be chilling on your couch when you should be
Exactly.
on the field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, so you scout a lot of players. Would you say that there's been any instances where there's been a player you've been like, he's the guy, then he's kind of proved you wrong? You don't have to go into like details or names or
Like he's
anything,
the guy, like
but yeah.
in a positive way, and
Mm-hmm.
then it wasn't.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and I think it's during the stage, which is always evolving, where you're just trying to figure out like what a pro is.
Mm-hmm.
Like even I think Johnny Manziel is a good example. Like,
Yeah.
okay, well, yeah, he's like the new type of kid. Like, yeah, they party, yeah, they like status, but like, look at him show up on game days. So you try to justify the next generation of person, and you try to look for the reasons why they will, and a lot of times the underlying reasons why they won't haven't really changed. It's just sometimes it's really hard to crack that.
Yeah, I definitely get that. And I mean, with the landscape of football changing how it is, I've this is a question you don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but I always just
Okay.
ask myself this because I was a big Johnny Manziel guy. I'm from Texas, grew up
Uh-huh.
watching him, so he was a guy. Do you ever think that potentially he could have succeeded in maybe another market, or do you think his actions and his personality are just the pure reason he just didn't succeed?
Um, Again, I tend to blame
Mm-hmm.
fewer external circumstances than
Yeah,
I do internal. Like yeah, I think fit and system like that matters.
yeah.
I don't know if in that situation it would have
I
mattered.
definitely understand that. I just had to
Yeah,
ask. So
yeah,
yeah, we'll shoot back to the social media part because this kind of can segue right into that though. You made a
of course.
post basically saying how um, you've seen all these athletes who you're giving them the opportunity and they don't feel like it's the opportunity for them. Then when that opportunity that they feel like is for them doesn't ever come, or they're just not that guy that they thought they were back then, now they're hitting you up later. I think I shared it on the screen, the post. You mind just talking on that just a little bit for me?
Yeah, more or less, it's people who didn't want to hear the truth,
Mm-hmm.
what they think would have led them down a path that would have helped them.
Yeah.
It's more that than like not taking opportunities that were given, like after a pro day, or after they get cut. It's like, all right, well, sir, what can I do, or what
Right.
I want this so bad. And it's like you, people don't want to hear the truth, so
Right.
they'll
Yeah.
they'll turn down jobs for the next 5 years
Mm-hmm.
hoping to play in the league, and then end up just being broke living at mom's house because they don't want to listen.
Yeah.
And then the kids who, it's earlier in their career, and they want feedback, like the guy who maybe needs to get better. The running back who needs to get better running routes. And it's like, no, it's a coach's fault. Like, then all of a sudden his draft stock, he's a low free agent because he only plays on first and second down. And it's like the spiral of excuses continues until they're begging to come back for another shot. I fixed it now. I listen now. I'm ready. So that's kind of what I was alluding to. And some people are great hearted and like some people just don't want to give up their dream. And I do respect that to a degree, but it's the ones who, I mean, they didn't want to hear a damn thing anybody had to say to them until it's too late. Like that's kind of what I was alluding to. And I get I get a lot of them.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. So kind of one thing on that. How do you feel about like I'm not sure if you're even familiar with like the arena football market. Are there ever guys in that arena football market that you think could make it pro?
I mean, I don't want there's exceptions to every rule. It's not a heavily scouted market. But I will say, like, if guys are at the back of the office in the NFL watching the tape, like a real dude in the arena football league should jump off the film in 5 plays. So if you're not doing that, if you aren't absolutely dominating, then you don't have a chance.
Exactly.
So
I definitely
I think that's
yeah.
Like you can't just be a pretty good arena. Like you have to literally be the best of all time. To get a tryout.
Exactly.
So there's just levels, man.
Yeah. I have a former teammate of mine plays in Jacksonville now with the Sharks, but he was a guy was on the Rams roster for a while, was a knucklehead, kind of just shunned himself from, that whole situation. I've seen him ball out and I'm like, dude, you're if you would have had your stuff together, because he was a guy went from NFL to was playing in the CFL for a while, then jumped right into the arena football league because it was like he couldn't take the criticism. He's an amazing athlete, but it's always down to the hey, you could tweak this or do this a little bit better, and it was like, nah, I'm a great player. How I am, I'll go show somebody else at a lower level, and it's like, of course you're gonna ball out in arena ball,
Right.
If you're not getting player of the week every other week, then but
exactly. And while he's messing around, 700 new prospects are coming in each year.
Exactly.
Like 2 years out, you're 1,500 deep. And you're not even on the list anymore.
To guys who at this point they're actively training for it. Even if you are playing arena
they're 22
ball,
and ready to go.
Yeah. Exactly. So I'll just go back to the questions more so.
Of course.
So how do you approach scouting players from like smaller or less well-known colleges? Like, I know you might have made a post about it. I think I read something, but you never know nowadays.
Who knows what I put.
My social media I'll scroll all day. But so specifically with these smaller schools where you can't really say, where you can say, yeah, he jumps out on this page, but would he jump out if I was to put him in the Big Ten or the SEC or the Pac-12? How do you scout guys like that?
Honestly, it's not easy. As you build up a library, like you're able to compare better about like, all right, well, this guy, these 10 guys the last 3 years, like these are the kind of plays they made. These are the kind of plays they didn't make. This is like the relative competition. So it really helps to be able to compare. I think you just really got to look at like how are they winning? Okay, is it a 250-pound tackle? Okay, is he as powerful as we think? Okay, how's his first step? Like I'm thinking honestly of Matthew Judon in my head, who played at Grand Valley State, and like, I mean, he was explosive. He was really productive, and I beat him up too because he's playing against like you at left tackle.
Yeah, exactly.
Or me. I was gonna say me, but you're probably better. And so it is really hard. It is really hard. It's a lot of it's the makeup. A lot of it's the live exposure. And like those are the games I'd like to go to live because if you could get up on a guy after being at a game that Sunday, an NFL game, and if you can get up on him and if you can feel like power or whatever it is, for a quarterback like Garoppolo, Like you could feel his confidence and his
Yeah.
his swagger, and you could
Mhm.
feel the ball come out of his hand. Like that kind of stuff translates. So a lot of times you just got to get up on him live, and All-Star game exposure
I
is
get
huge
that.
there
I
too
get
because
that.
it's the comp is leveled.
Yeah. So, kind of building on that just a little bit. In your experience with guys like that, has it been more important to see their like combine and pro day performances, or is it more so of a I want to see the game film because the game tape doesn't lie type thing?
When you're in that situation, you've got to check all the boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I would say all-star games are absolutely critical for
Mm-hmm.
guys like that. Pro day verifies like some measurements. A lot of times, like they don't have the resources. Like maybe dude's let's say a defensive end and he's 219 pounds.
Yeah.
Okay, because they don't have training table. They can't feed you 3 meals a day.
Mm-hmm.
And then he shows up at the combine after he's got a little money and real resources, and he's 252.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, like that happens all the time. So how does he handle that? How can he still move at that weight? Like what's he look like with actual resources behind his belt?
Mm-hmm.
But like you can't just do that and then go back to the film and it's trash. Like
Exactly.
then you'll just best case be a free agent. Like
Yeah.
Matthew Judon was a fifth round pick,
I know. Mm-hmm.
you know, and he's an all pro
Yeah.
now, but
Exactly.
it's still hard. We had no idea.
Yeah.
Like we knew he had some traits, but also it's just you're just betting, man. It's hard.
Yeah. Well, how about those guys from like the bigger schools? Is it kind of the same way with them when you're with you personally when you're scouting them, or can you rely a little bit more on the combine performance or the game film? Is there
Honestly, probably the other way around. You could rely a little
okay?
bit more on the
Yeah.
tape
Mm-hmm.
because they're going against,
The
in
best of
theory,
the
guys
best.
who are much better.
Exactly.
So you just got so much more evidence of them doing it against similar competition
Mm-hmm.
to what they'll be doing it in the league. So then I would say the combine and all that matters less.
Right. Okay. So how do you kind of strike a balance between relying on like guys' statistics, and evaluating like the players' intangibles when like during your scouting process?
Yeah, I think I'm going to work my way up the levels. I think in high
Yeah, of
school, a lot of
course.
times, like statistics, it's more about ability, I
Mm-hmm.
think, than statistics sometimes in high school because you're really projecting.
Exactly.
So I think people get wrapped up like, dude, I had 1,500 yards. Like, dude, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't have these traits, or you do have these traits. As you work your way up, like, and there's a lot of statistical evidence on this, but production matters at key positions.
Yeah.
Like you look at the Ravens drafts, like they really don't take receivers who haven't had like 100 catches. You know, it's
Exactly.
some
Yeah.
there's stats like that where they just believe because like historically speaking, those guys have had more success.
Mm-hmm.
But there are extenuating circumstances. Maybe he
Right.
played in the wing T. Maybe his quarterback was garbage. Maybe the coach wasn't making excuses, but like
Yeah. No,
they're
I
sometimes
gotcha.
they're
Yeah. Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
You
Um.
know?
So, kind of speaking on those extenuating circumstances, you mentioned the wing T. Um, I'm up in Illinois now. I coached at a high school. We ran the wing T
Yeah,
last year. Um,
yeah.
I I personally feel like that's something that hurts, especially like so. I had a receiver this past season. I'm like, dude, I played college ball and indoor arena ball, and you're better than at least three guys I played with from there.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
he's a guy no offers in football. At least he was also a wrestler, so he went the wrestling route. But he was a receiver that easily could have been somebody. Do you think that maybe
Uh-huh.
the wing T hurts the recruiting process, or would you think? How do you feel about
So we
that?
ran the wing T in high school,
Okay.
so that's kind of why I just said it.
Yeah.
But uh, hmm, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's where like live exposures are so
Yeah.
important in the
Mhm.
recruiting process, and going back again, like that's why like you can't be at every camp, so you got to kind of understand like, all right, I'm 6'2", I'm fast, like
Yeah.
I need to be going to these schools, like because this is who I compare to favorably. But if you're 5'10" and slow,
Yeah. You
like,
go and
don't
wrap
go
it
to
up.
Clemson camp,
Exactly.
you know?
Exactly. Yeah. So if you don't mind, do you have maybe like a memorable success story of a player you maybe scouted who kind of exceeded the expectations and maybe had an
Uh,
impact, significant impact in the league, Will there be somebody that you guys
Yeah, so
drafted or
there's
not?
one
You
I'm
know.
thinking of when we go back to like, and I think one of the biggest like over posted social
Mm-hmm.
media things is like, oh, like I don't know, hard work beats or character beats talent, you
Yeah.
know, like stuff like that. Like it's just over dramatized. Like I
Mm-hmm.
get where they're going, but you know, not everybody is a choir boy. Not everybody has a perfect
Exactly.
path.
Exactly.
So the one guy like I'm thinking of is Shelby Harris, who,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he'll kill me if I'm wrong, but I think he got kicked out of 2 schools, and like it wasn't a perfect pass. It did not look good on paper. But I took the time to get to know him, and I really like the guy. I like him to this day. He's a great person and great
Mm-hmm.
family man. But I trusted my gut, which I mean,
Yeah.
it's not always right. It's not always right. But I fought for the dude because I mean, he was one of the most instinctive players I've ever seen at the defensive tackle position, and
Nice.
he didn't play the last year. He got kicked, I think Wisconsin and then Illinois State. Got kicked out of both.
Oh wow.
And so we took him in the 7th round.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I put my balls on the line, and uh I mean he's been getting paid. Like he's not
Oh
on a team
yeah.
right now,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
that was
Uh
10
huh.
years ago. That dude's been playing for 9 years at least.
Yeah.
Just carved out a really good career, and he's just a great person. And I think if you just look objectively, or if you follow all the cliches,
Mm-hmm.
like you would have never get nobody would have given him the
Exactly.
chance.
I
You know, and
understand
I'm
that.
not saying it's me, like it's him, but this is kind of how you got to redefine and look at people. Like there's a lot of circumstances that people have to overcome. Like not everybody has a silver spoon in their mouth. Not everybody wakes up like or was born like
Exactly.
knowing how to work
Yeah.
hard,
Yeah.
you know, or like have great examples or stay out of trouble. Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's a learned trait, and like that's probably my favorite example, at least it sticks out in
Nice.
my head about how
Yeah.
everything's evolved. And
Nice. So what do you think are some like common misconceptions about like the scouting process that personally through your career you've seen people say, "Oh, you're a scout this," or "Oh, you're an NFL scout. Does that
Uh,
mean?"
people used to ask like, "Oh, so do you have another job?" Like, because they think they just associate it with during the season.
Yeah. Mhm.
So like, I think people either thought I was like the brokest person on the planet or the richest person on the
Yeah, there's
planet.
no in
They
between.
put
Yeah.
yeah, because they put NFL on a pedestal, and they're like,
Mhm.
"Oh my God, you're like,"
You're a
it was so
billionaire.
yeah. Or and then I would get like people that just had no idea. They're like, "What do you have you ever met John Gruden?" And it's like the dude is literally my boss. Like, have
Yeah,
you ever met
he's
your boss?
he's like my direct
Like,
superior. Yeah.
yeah, he's like I just couldn't. I don't
Mhm.
know. It's just like people, and again, it's no fault of theirs. Like they see it on TV. It's very gamified because it is a game.
Yeah.
Uh, so those were the biggest misconceptions. And honestly,
Nice.
like, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it it,
I
it
get it.
is what
I
it
get
is.
it. And like I guess speaking on like getting to know guys like John Gruden and things like that, how important is like building the relationships and like networking within like the sports industry, especially when you're working in the NFL and you're a scout or an NFL exec.
Yeah, I think from a scouting perspective, it's really
Mm-hmm.
huge to network with the people at the universities,
Yeah.
because truthful information on these prospects as they come up, I think is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that sometimes trumps the film evaluation because you need to know what you're getting. You need to know
Yeah.
how they learn, how to teach them, and if they're going to succeed ultimately in your building.
Exactly.
So those relationships, they just take time. Like
Yeah.
you go into
Yeah.
school 2 times a year, and I think over time, if you're genuine, like you'll start to get better quality information. So
Mm-hmm.
it's huge from that standpoint.
Yeah. And I mean, so what are some like key things you're looking for when when you're evaluating an athlete's potential, to
Uh-huh.
transition from like college to pro successfully? Like we talked about Johnny Manziel, he's a guy who didn't really translate well
Yeah,
into the NFL,
you
and
want to
yeah,
talk down the physical
yeah.
train or our character?
We let's start with physical and then we'll jump into character. How does that sound?
Yeah, that's fair. It's very position
Mm-hmm.
specific, obviously, but ultimately, like the first thing you're watching is just like baseline
Yeah.
athleticism. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
I think people, when I say athleticism, they think like, can you dunk a basketball? All right, how twitchy are you? Like,
Right.
yeah, that's part of it, but also like balance and coordination
Mm-hmm.
and ability to bend your knees and play in awkward body positions because you're
Yeah.
always in awkward body positions on the field. So things like that ultimately are just as important as
Mm-hmm.
explosion. The ones that have all of it are awesome,
Right.
but you gotta have between like size, play speed, play strength, like explosion. Like you got to have at least one of them,
Yeah. Yeah.
but the rest, the complementary, non-sexy traits are what ultimately makes a well-rounded athlete, and those are the guys that have success, at least sustained success.
Yeah.
And then character-wise, like again, like I've redefined this as it's gone through the years. Like there's got to be like it's got to be intrinsic for the most.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've got to have pride. I
Yeah.
think that's the best way I could put it. You just got to have pride. If you're okay failing or sucking, then you don't have a chance. So
Right.
it's hard to define, but if you're around people and you can see it on tape a lot of times, like
Mm-hmm.
you can see the body language, and I mean, we got 4 years of them in college too to kind of validate this and talk to people and pride's something I don't think you can shut off.
Right.
Like if you, I mean, bag it in on the rest of your life, but you show up in football, like those guys don't have the longest careers,
Exactly.
man.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't just shut off pride. Like you either care or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing that's certainly underlying in all the good
Nice.
ones.
Okay. So, and when it comes to like having those, the things you see as those like position or those specific like factors,
Yeah.
how do you feel when like people, or how do you like handle it, especially like in the office when you guys like disagree on things like that? Let's say you guys are scouting a guy and you're seeing something and you're like, hey, I know y'all are seeing this. I know you're seeing it.
Yeah.
Look at how he's ending every play. You know what I mean? And everybody in the room just like, no. How do you guys kind of like deal with those disagreements? I know.
I mean, we try to just go back to the tape, but
Mm-hmm.
everybody interprets it differently, and
Right.
that's the beautiful part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like what I think is power, someone else could think, the defender was on his heels.
Right.
What, like you can justify whatever you want depending on the lens you're looking through. So like it got heated sometimes. It certainly did, but most were civil, and ultimately one person makes a decision in the room. So they kind of get squashed at the end of the day. But
Yeah.
where I think the most disagreements happen is like when we spend time with the kid, like on the
Mm-hmm.
character end. And I like we could go through a whole interview and I'd be like, dude can't learn. Like he
Yeah.
really is going to struggle to pick up our playbook. And someone else will be like, what do you mean? I thought he got it. I thought he picked it up great.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's wide variances in terms of like what we think will succeed from a character standpoint. So those are fun, but they're also like you can't really win.
I get it. I get it.
You just got to have someone put the hammer down at some point.
Yeah. And so, kind of speaking on the character side of it, I've heard the stories and seen like in draft day this happened. I just want to know
Yeah.
how accurate it is. They say that they gave Jamarcus Russell a playbook, put a $10 bill in the back end of it, and asked him if he. Is that something that actually like happens in the
Uh,
league, or is that just like one of those
I wouldn't put it
NFL
past
exec
people.
myths?
No, I
Okay.
wouldn't put it past people. Everyone's looking for an edge. Like that's probably dramatized, but
Yeah,
like I don't know. I not it wouldn't surprise me.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know Jamarcus Russell came through y'all's, but that
So
was before
I
you were
wasn't there
there.
yet,
Yeah,
so don't put that on me.
it's okay. It's okay. As long as we all agree, he might have been just the biggest bust of all time. But
No comment.
that's a story for another day. So, if you don't mind me asking, what do you kind of enjoy most about being involved in the recruiting and scouting process?
What do I? Yeah, I think the imperfect nature of it,
Mm-hmm.
like we're predicting humans,
Yeah.
like, and that's what we all have to realize. Like they just evolve and they change, and they're inherently unpredictable. So, like the fact that you're never going to bat 100% or
Mm-hmm.
bat 1,000, or the fact that you're never probably going to bat 50% is like there's never a day where I would wake up and be like, what do I do today?
Yeah.
Or like, what can I get better at today? Like, never woke up like that because I knew exactly. Like, if I
Exactly.
don't stay ahead of this, it's gonna kick me in the ass.
Hmm.
So that was the most fun part. Is there was always a carrot. You never arrived.
I get
You were
it.
never good enough.
Hmm.
And I mean, that's like a long hallway to be walking down, but it's motivating.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. Um, how do you kind of like? So I know you're a Kansas State guy. I'm not even sure if you would have played with them. It would be like Coach Victor Mann. I don't know if you were on the roster with him.
Yeah, I wasn't. I
Ah,
wasn't.
that might have been right. Oh yeah, no, never mind. He graduated '07. Okay, I was
Okay.
2 years
Yeah. I was
too.
still in high school.
Yeah, it's okay. But when it comes to like scouting guys, you being like a K State guy, do you have like any bias or like how do you kind of stay objective and maintain from being like biased, especially when you're evaluating guys and scouting guys?
Uh, if I said I didn't have bias, I'd be lying,
Hmm.
and everybody'd be lying if they said they didn't.
Right,
You just
of
have to
course.
recognize it, like, and try to compensate for it.
Hmm.
I think where I would ended up having the most bias, like I lived in Chicago when I scouted the Midwest. I
Yeah.
lived in Nashville when I scouted that half of the country. So
Hmm.
like let's use Chicago as an example. Like I lived at Northwestern. Like I was always up there
Oof.
watching film. Those
I,
are my boys. Those are my
yeah.
guys.
I feel
Like
bad for you.
I knew, yeah. Well, I knew a lot about the program. I knew a lot
Hmm.
about the kids, and I knew too much.
I get it.
I knew
Hmm.
too much. Okay, I was way too hard on them. I never gave those guys a chance,
Hmm.
and that was kind of my own my own worst enemy was the
Yeah.
proximity and the intimate knowledge that I did have. So that's something where, again, I did recognize it there at the end, but like there's no way to completely eliminate bias. K
Yeah.
State guys, I just throw up at the top of the board.
Yeah. And it be like that sometimes. Kind of wish
Yeah,
Deuce Vaughn would
we'll
have
let
been
the other
guys,
guys
but you
fight it
know,
out.
yeah. So, have there been any instances where you like had to pass on like a highly touted prospect, due to like some off the field concerns, or like how do you approach those type of situations? Have you had to approach
Oh
those
yeah,
type of situations?
it happens all the time, all the
Hmm.
time. I was always the one that people. I was like, take him off the board, take him off the board. Like I like to lean board, and like if there were question marks in terms of his fit or ability to develop,
He's just gone.
I got
I get it.
gone. And I probably was the extreme, but like where is the balance? I don't know. I mean, you could run a bunch of like statistical models in terms of like how many players you need on the board in order
Hmm.
to most likely get one of them in each round. So we would run some of those analytical models just to make sure there were enough names up there.
Hmm.
So I think that's the way to do it. Is just stay objective with the numbers and the count.
I get
So
it.
you
Hmm.
can't get to the fifth round and have no players on your board.
Right.
So that's where I talked about like everything's relative at the beginning, because like one year it's totally different than the next.
Exactly.
And you like a
Exactly.
fifth round pick is not just a fifth round pick.
Now, kind of going on that just a little bit more. Um, let's say you're in the draft right now, and there's a guy in free agency. You know you could probably land. Would you potentially pass on a draft pick for that guy you can get in free agency, or I know every
Hmm.
NFL exec is very different when it comes to this. That's why I wanted to ask. I've seen guys who are like, I'm gonna take the young guy over the veteran any day, and I've seen also I take the veteran over the young guy any day. So what side of the fence do you kind of lean on when that goes?
Yeah, and the Rams were the perfect example
Mm-hmm.
regarding what you're talking about. Like a proven commodity. Oh man, like you want the dudes on their initial contract
Mm-hmm.
from a like long term building a team standpoint.
Exactly.
Uh, if you want to know exactly what you're getting, or for the most part what you're getting, like I understand like leveraging that like they did now,
Mm-hmm.
but you're going to look at them coming up, and it's going to be really hard to afford them. It's going to be really hard to rebuild quickly because you don't have the assets you used to have.
Yeah.
So like I would mortgage the farm for a ring all day every day.
Okay, so
Like
you take the
I think
Tampa
that,
approach.
I mean, if you get a ring, go get a
Yeah,
ring.
yeah. Just go in,
100%.
stack your roster guys. You know it's going to be gone 2, 3 years, and
I mean,
Get
there's
the
like you can't just go all in. That's like going
yeah.
all in on the transfer portal. Like in 2 years, you'll have no players left.
Mhm.
But like that there's balance to it. But I will never judge somebody for going to get a ring
I
if it
get it.
works.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, like the way you started the question though, like free agency happens before the draft,
Yeah, of
so
course.
you kind of know your draft board before free agency. So
Mhm.
you like, all right, this is a deep tackle draft. We have 3 picks in the top 60 picks. Like we'll probably get a tackle. Maybe we don't have to spend to get one.
Yeah.
Uh, and then the inverse of that is also true. So that like playing the odds and understanding the numbers, like what's available at each position, like it
Mhm.
factors a lot into decisions.
I get it. I get it. I mean, and just I know we already talked about kind of just the change in all of football. Do you think what role do you think that like maybe technology's played in not specifically the change in football, but the change in like y'all scouting process? And has it kind of like evolved since you first started versus now?
Yeah, it's evolved for sure, and it's improved for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like there's been teams that have tried to go all in on the analytics method, and so far they haven't had much success. So it's pushed that out a little bit. But at the end of the day, like it's not baseball, it's not man versus ball. Like
Yeah,
it just isn't, and there's too many. There's 22 moving parts, and they all have to fit together differently. Like you can never just fully turn this into a number or a yes or a no or
I get it.
binary. So that will always maintain like
Mm-hmm.
the integrity of it, but uh, it certainly helped us like break ties or uncover. I know I'm freezing a little bit here. I don't know
Oh
why,
yeah, no,
but
you're fine. Yeah, you're fine.
yeah, or uncover guys that maybe we didn't give enough of a chance to because
Mm-hmm.
they have a certain trait. And now these guys are being tracked by GPS in college, so
Exactly.
we have
Yeah.
data that we never had
Mm-hmm.
that like we can use to like cross reference. Like dude hit 21.5 on a GPS. Like let's go back and watch that film
Yeah.
again.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that.
I get it. I get it. So I know we were also talking about the draft before that, but you mind just sharing some insight on like the behind the scenes aspect of like draft day operations and like the level of coordination required to like ensure a successful draft? I'm sorry, I used a couple big words there,
Oh, I
but
think I track. I think I can track.
I gotcha.
uh, the first thing that jumps into mind is like draft day trades, and
Mm-hmm.
I think people don't. You see it pop up on the bottom of ESPN, but there's a lot of preparation that goes on
Really?
behind the scenes, like at least understanding like what's a good trade, why you should trade back versus trade up, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that is like how your board falls.
Yeah.
Like if you're thick at a certain point in the draft, at least how you value them there,
Mm-hmm.
and you're picking here, like maybe you'll accept a trade back, or maybe there's a guy who kind of singled out on your board that it was worth giving up a 4th round pick to go get. So those kind of decisions are really made way in advance, but like the phone operation, the calls coming in when you're on the clock, and the being able to really calculate like the trade chart and
Mm-hmm.
what's a fair trade versus like I guess what's not,
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff like that there was a lot of preparation that went on behind the scenes, being able to get a counter. Like you got 5 minutes on the clock
Yeah.
on day 3, like fielding a phone call, making a counter, negotiating, and turning it into the league, and then turning in your pick in 5 minutes
That's a
is
lot.
a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of prep work by the analytics side, and then by us to make that happen.
Nice. So it's not like draft day. It's not you're getting the call early in the morning. I'll give you 3 first round picks for.
No,
It's
that's true.
really
That's true for the
okay.
first. Yeah, that's all day.
Oh
Yeah,
wow, wow. Okay,
yeah. So
and
that's
it's
absolutely true. But the like day 3, like you don't know.
yeah, I get it.
Like that's when it gets crazy,
Mm-hmm.
and also like that's easy at the top of the draft. Like yeah, that goes on in February.
Yeah.
Uh, but then the rest of it you just have to adjust to.
So, I guess a question I kind of want to know just a little bit more about as far as like that draft process goes. Um, when
Mhm.
we're at home watching the draft, we're seeing everybody knows who. Let's take the first overall pick this past season.
Yeah.
Everybody knew who the Panthers were going to select.
Yeah.
Why do you think it took so long for them to call in their pick? Do you think there was some type of, was there a chance that, just because we thought that, and every um,
Um,
body who knows anything when it comes to football said that? Or was it like one of those, just let's just make them wait? Or how do teams do that? Like, what is that?
so the league, the league tells us to wait.
Okay, so it can't
The
just be
we
like
got it. We can't
Panthers
just
are on
mess
the
up
board, first
we
pick.
can't mess up the TV schedule,
I
man.
get it.
Yeah,
Okay,
so they hold it up for I mean, for viewership
that
reasons.
makes a little bit
Yeah.
more
And then
sense.
sometimes you'll hold on to the card, like hoping the phone rings. Like
Yeah.
maybe, who knows? Maybe whoever the Texans would call and offer 3 first-round picks.
Yeah.
So there's always like a little bit of a carrot in your head, like, maybe if we
I
wait,
get it.
like someone will call and offer us something we can't turn down.
Yeah. And so when it comes to like draft day, or especially from you on the scouting end, how do you kind of
Mhm.
navigate like the balance between projecting a player's potential versus like assessing like their current skills? Like, we're not talking early in the draft, we're talking the later on picks, the fifth, sixth, seventh round picks.
Yeah.
How do you kind of
Yeah.
adjust that to decide who you guys are drafting?
Yeah, that's where the character really comes in,
Mm-hmm.
and it should come in more everywhere.
Yeah.
But like when you look at like Max Crosby and Hunter Renfrow and those type of guys that we were
Mm-hmm.
able to get day 3, like they freaking loved it. They are like the throwback, freaking all in, eat, sleep, breathe it. Like
Yeah.
you can't admit, maybe you get a bigger, faster guy, but we don't have quite a feel for their character. So those are the guys that make it on day 3. And there's a reason you're on day 3. So at that point, we just got to kind of filter by the traits that are proven to be successful.
Yeah. Okay. And so I know you were with the Raiders during the COVID season and things like that, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So specifically on the scouting end, I know on the football end it was a whole nother mess of a
Hmm.
thing going on. But can you discuss any like specific challenges you faced during scouting during COVID? Because I know so many teams just weren't
Yeah.
players playing, guys were opting out and just saying I'm just gonna prepare for the next draft. How did
I
that
mean, the
kind of
hardest
like
part for us,
affect?
yeah, yeah. So there was like the world shut down like in March.
Yeah.
So that was like right before a draft.
Mm-hmm.
So we trying to remember because we didn't get a chance to go to pro days. We never really
Right.
got it
Exactly.
to interview that class
Mm-hmm.
up close, but we did get a lot of live exposure to them.
Okay.
So that was a different challenge than the year upcoming where we really couldn't see them.
Right.
Like we didn't really spend any time with them that next year.
Yeah.
So that was harder.
So when
Like
you're
'cause we
yeah,
didn't get the whole
yeah.
fall.
So when you guys didn't get that whole fall to watch football and be able to scout your next incoming team, how did you kind of work around that? Was that did you guys more so use film from the past, going like the
Yeah.
guys who you were
I mean, they still had
reliable?
the film. Most of them were still
Yeah.
playing.
Mm-hmm.
It was there's nobody in the stands.
Right.
So it's like yeah, it's the same, but also like you find out quickly who gets motivated by the crowd.
Oh, I agree.
And then the opt outs, that was tough. But
Mm-hmm.
guys like Jamar Chase, like they had a lot of tape
Exactly.
uh, that was valuable.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was. So we still had the film. It was just we didn't get to know him as well as we could have.
I
There's a
get
lot
it.
of Zoom, like 20-minute Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Like the league opened that up, but I mean anybody can be anybody in
Yeah.
20-minute
Exactly.
Zoom.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, kind of just building on that a little bit more. With those opt outs, was there any hesitation other than like the Jamar Chases of the world, who are guys that
Yeah,
they're almost sure ins?
yeah.
Outside of those, were there any opt outs that you guys you just took off the board because it's like, well, they're not playing this year. We don't kind of know what they got. They weren't the most productive
Um,
during their time, but they declared for the draft. Or how'd that kind of
yeah.
look?
Case by case. I wouldn't say we ever like would take anybody off.
Mm-hmm.
Like some people had maybe legitimate reasons to do it, so it's hard to judge there. But just makes it harder, man. You just don't have the evidence that you have. Like if you
Yeah.
got at least 2 years of tape on some guy, or 3 years of tape, you just feel a lot better about what you're getting. Especially a guy like, you don't know if he was like just chilling eating lasagna on his couch or if he was actually
Exactly.
training. Like we didn't know what you were going to get. So there's that variable. Like it's just more of an unknown.
Yeah. So, kind of as a scout, how important is it for you for like athletes to know the game of football just beyond their position?
Oh, the instinctive side,
Mm-hmm.
like it's beyond huge. Like if you can, like the difference between a 4.7 linebacker and a 4.5 linebacker is really
Yeah.
hard to see on film
Mm-hmm.
if the 4.7 guy can see it faster.
Right.
So those guys, especially at those positions, like running back, linebacker, safety, like where angles and instincts and leverage come into play, it's beyond huge. Like that's a big reason why people fail is because they're not invested in understanding the film and understanding how like you can't just be big and fast anymore.
I get it.
It just
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to have nuance
Mm-hmm.
associated with your game in order to be a reliable player. Then if you have those other physical traits on top of it, then you're cooking with gasoline. But you can't not have that side, and it takes actually proper study of film,
Yeah.
uh, and just being able to play free.
Yeah. I get it. And I'll kind of close out just a little bit here.
Yeah.
Um, what advice would you give to young athletes who, how to maximize their like potential and stand out to these recruiters, guys like you, who you've been around for a while and you've been doing it for a while?
hmm Look, no one's going to change your genetics.
Mm-hmm.
No one's going to make you necessarily 2 inches taller or 2/10 faster. Like you got to worry about what's in your control. Uh, I think a lot of that is understanding, having the self awareness and understanding like how you're actually being evaluated. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
like at the high school level, like a highlight tape is huge, and I
Right.
can go on and on about what I don't like about highlight tapes. But if you can't show them what they're looking for in the first 6 plays,
Mm-hmm.
like they're not going to keep watching. They don't have time. So
Exactly.
like being able to understand like how your body works, like maybe you're a stiff defensive end who's got strong hands. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're trying to play like Von Miller, you'll never succeed. So embrace your weaknesses, embrace your strengths, and play to them. Like
Yeah.
there's a bunch of stiff guys playing in the NFL. If that's you, like figure out how they play well. Okay. And then figure out what these coaches and what these scouts actually want to see,
Mm-hmm.
and learn the game, figure out what scheme you're going to fit. Like just know the game and be willing to like actually look in the mirror and understand what you got.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess my last question would just be,
Mm-hmm.
looking ahead, what do you envision for the future of scouting and like players, especially with NIL and things now? How do you think that'll impact scouting? And do you even think it'll continue to evolve, or are we at that like golden age of
Ooh,
scouting?
I don't know if am at liberty to predict the future here, but I do think it's going to level out. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just totally new, but at the end of the day, like we just have to adapt with it.
Right.
It's like, yeah, like cell phones were invented, so we have to figure out how to work within the confines of the world.
Yeah.
So like rather than just like the NIL is bad or like rather than just generalizing it, like
Mm-hmm.
scouts, coaches, evaluators, whatever, they're going to have to understand now how to relate to these kids and understand like like what is going to lead to success, because it's
Yeah.
going to change. It's not what it was 15 years ago. So we just got to be able to adapt. I don't think there's any magic pill,
I
but
gotcha.
people are changing, and if
Yeah.
we don't change with it, then we're just idiots.
I get it. I get it. Well, thanks so much, Trey. Is there anything you'd like to just say pretty much to the world or anybody who might be watching? Maybe
The whole world's listening.
yeah, I wish, but anybody, let's say, anything you'd like to say to maybe that kid who's looking to get to the next level, or that kid who is in college right now and they don't know if, they're good enough to end up and actually go in the draft and have a successful career.
Yeah.
What would just be that what would be that Trey Scott stamp of, hey, this is what you need, keep on with it? What would your thing be? What would you tell him?
Focus on you.
Mm-hmm.
Focus on you. Like let's stop making this about other people. focus on you, focus on football. And then if you can maximize those two things, then you'll go as far as your genetics will let you go. That's it. Like
Nice.
quit waiting for other people to take you where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like quit looking for someone to get you recruited. Like quit waiting for someone to give you an opportunity. Like create it. Okay,
Yeah.
by doing what's in your control. And that's what I'm about.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Trey. It's been amazing having you here. I really hope this impacted somebody. I'm sure it did because it impacted me talking to you.
Appreciate it, man.
Yes, sir. Of course, of course. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope I'll see you guys next time. It's been the Overlooked Podcast.